the MGTC. So this was the redesigned, ever so slightly redesigned sports car that came out as the TB. The TA, which was not released as a TA, it was released as a T. It only became the TA after there was a TB. TA was released in about 1936. And then it ran the MPJG engine. It's not a very good engine. And they came up and developed the X series engine and put that into the TB. But they only made a handful of TBs, 300 and some change. And then the war broke out and everything went from commercial production into war production in England. So as soon as the war was over, they took that TB, made it about 4 inches wider at the back, that's what I understand, and started knocking them out. These were the cars that Dick Knudsen labeled the sports car America loved first. Some of them came back to this country. Oh, well, you know what I'm going to do? How can I do this now? I don't know. I don't know if I can. I can't mute everybody, so I just ask everybody to be quiet. But anyway, the TC, they made 9,600 TCs between 1945 and 1949. They all were supplied with 19-inch wire wheels, solid front axle, steering, which makes them drive like an old Datsun truck. It's not steering, it's aiming, but they're really quick. And they were quicker and held the corners better than some of their American counterparts. So that was the entry into the United States. The goal of the British government was to export as much as they could, export or die. That was the call. So they came out next with, oh, here we got the Y Saloon. Who did this originally belong to? Sometimes he says, oh, owned by Jerry Gogan, part of his MG museum in Westminster, Vermont. So at the same time that MG made a sports car, it always made a family car. So the Y type, pictured here, came out, when it first came out, it had a single carburetor. And I believe maybe a solid front axle. When it came out as the YB, I think by then it had the suspension that we're all used to from the TD right through the end of the production at MGBs. And the YB, hence the Ys then became YAs, the original ones, had 2 carburetors. Oh boy, make them go just a little bit faster. Then, because the organization, the Nuffield organization, knew that the United States wanted an open top car, they cut the top of the Y type off and called it the YT, the Y Tourer. They made 877 of those. Dick Knudsen called them a rare Victorian bathtub. They were not, well, beauties in the eye of the beholder, but they didn't spark a lot of interest. They were pretty underpowered, even though they had an X-Pag engine with 2 carburetors. And they also had a jacking system in them, a jack-all system that you could dial to the front or the rear or all 4 and pick the front or the rear or the whole car up off the ground for service, for changing a wheel. Really nice. Of course, all the YBs, all the Ys and the YBs had disc wheels. Let's go down and take a look at the TD. So the TD was introduced in 1950. By the time they were done with it in 1953, they'd made 50,000 units. It was wildly successful. Nothing of that number had come from England before, and there were lots of them. It was the precursor. The MG Car Club North America was the precursor of the Sports Car Club of America. This really is what set the import market on fire, the TD. So the factory was so pleased that they had been able to come up with a disc wheel that was relatively attractive and far lighter than the wire wheel. So they made the TD with disc wheels. Of course, half of the people complained, half of the owners complained and said, but we want wire wheels. The factory said, well, it's crazy. You know, they go out of tune, they're heavier, they don't handle as well. And hey, everybody wanted wire wheels. So when they brought out the TF a couple years later, that was available also with wire wheels. So the TD still continues to use that X series engine. These are different TDs. So it has a badge bar on it. These are all George Herschel's drawings. You can see his name underneath there. If I put these into not PowerPoint, yeah, PowerPoint, then we could just flip them and see. Here's one with some extra driving lights on it, I guess. Looks like you can see a long way down the road, along with a New England MGT register motif. You'll see that the wiper motors move to the center of the windscreen now. That identifies it as a 53, along with, I believe, the headlamps are chrome and the tail lamps are round, and the instruments are magnetic and no longer chronometric. But basically, it's the same car as it had been. So this is the Arnault. This uses a TD chassis with wire wheels and an Arnault body. So there are very, very few of these around. I don't know if George even says how many there are up here. Oh my gosh, he's got a whole lot written about it. But anyway, and I don't see anything. I see that they were $3,100. You could buy a Jag for $3,100. Anyway, this is the Arnaults are really, really nice cars, really beautifully styled and luxurious. So here's another later model TD with the windscreens set up, the small windscreens, as though that makes any difference running down the road, and we're missing the side panels. This is what Hank, come on, help me out. Hank's last name with a T register.
That'd be Rippert.
Yeah, Rippert. Thank you. Hank Rippert did with his TC, or his TD 8888, although he'd put cycle fenders on his. So then they had designed the MGA. It was all already done, all sort of set to go. Leonard Lord, I believe it was Leonard Lord, said, I'm not going to make two cars that look exactly the same. And a Healy 104 and an MGA don't look exactly the same, but they're really close. I was surprised. I went to the MGB meet in San Diego, and I think it was 2017. And I looked across the parking lot and I thought, oh, there's a Healy there. And then as I walked over to it later and looked at it, it only followed the Healy paint scheme, and it was an MGA. So what he had to say was correct. Why make two cars that look so very much the same? So they asked the MG company to sandwich some sort of model together, throw something together quickly, so that they could upgrade, because their sales are starting to fail. This old T-series square rigger design had seen its day, but out came the TF, and the TF looks like a TD, except that you'd put your foot behind the front wheel and then pushed on the radiator and made the whole top of the car angle towards the rear. Very swept, and of course the headlamps are molded into the front fenders. They made 10,000 of these, 9,600 of these, 10,000 TCs, 30,000 TDs, 9,600 TFs. The TFs picked up the new British Motor Corporation serial numbers, which began at 501. Prior to this, all the models began at 251, which is the phone number at the factory at Abingdon. So the first TD off the line was at TD 0251, but the first the first TF off the line was 501. Then, after they'd made 9,600 of them, then the first MGA off the line was 10101. So the TF's got to the same engine, that X series engine, for 1935 or 36. It's a pretty cool engine, high revving. They popped the displacement up just a little bit, made it 1,500 cc's instead of 1,250. Not that it really made an awful lot of difference. You can make a 1,250 run a whole lot faster than a 1,500 if you just work with it, port it and polish it, and get the compression right and so forth. These were the cars at the time. So here's the EX179. This is the race car that I think Goldie Gardner drove out on the salt flats in Utah and achieved some incredible, let me look up here, 260 miles an hour or something or other. Okay, anyway, 154 miles an hour. And it's quite the vehicle. There's one of these on display at I think at Gaydon, in the big car museum at Gaydon.
I think 254 was the highest speed.
Okay. So here's this
car.
what is this EX 182? So here's the prototype MGA that they ran at Le Mans and did all right with it. But again, they had to keep this thing not under wraps, but they just couldn't start producing them until right at the very, very end of 1955, I think. Then we have the MGA. That pushes us up into over 100,000 cars. So they made about 110,000 MGAs. Now, 10,000 of those were MGA coupes. 2,111 were twin cams. 60,000 of them were MGA 1500s. Maybe 40,000 were 1600s, and then 10,000, that doesn't add up quite right, but that's about right, were Mark IIs. We got the wire wheels back, and we've got this new B series engine. It's confusing because there's an A series engine and a B series engine. The A series engine is the smaller engine that they used in the Sprite and the Midget, and the MG 1100 and the Minis, so forth. This is the B series engine. That's considerably larger, and they continued using that right up through about 1990. It's a real workhorse. It's a really excellent engine. It's really, really nice. So this has got drum brakes front and rear. It's bucket seats. It went through a bunch of variations. They changed a little bit in the grille, in the front end a little bit. The taillights changed between a 1500 to 1600 and a Mark II. It did come with disc wheels if you wanted it. So this is the twin cam coupe. You can see that this has got disc wheels and knockoffs. This is really a sort of racing kind of option, so that when you came into the pit, you didn't have to have an air gun and remove 4 individual lug nuts. You could take your hammer, knock the spinner loose, spinner would come off, and you'd pull the wheel off, which was held in place by 4 pegs. Then put the new wheel on, turn it less than 90 degrees, it'd fall into the holes, put the spinner on, and bang, you're back out on the track. The MGA twin cam was made in 1959 and 1960. It was a warranty nightmare. A lot of people have been campaigning for a long time for a car that they could get from the factory and take right out to the racetrack and do reasonably well with it. So the MGA came up with this twin cam engine and either put it into production sooner than they should have, or they didn't spend enough time. It's something or other. And it was just horrible. They had oil leaking and perforated pistons, and of course there's oil leaking, vibrations, all kinds of stuff. And after 2,111 units, they said, that's it, we're done. We're not going to make any more of these. They trashed the remainder of the engines to take a tax write-off, and the remainder of the initial supply of chassis, they ordered 2,500 chassis. The remainder of those became MGA Deluxes, which are the twin cam chassis with a pushrod engine. So you either like the coupe or not. Sometimes it looks like a football helmet put on a car. So then we've got the MGB. The MGB, we got 508, maybe 508,000 MGBs made from 62 through 1980. They start off as a really Spartan vehicle, not much unlike the MGA, 4 inches wider. Same engine. Well, they pop it up a little bit. They got an 1800 engine in it. Same kind of differential, a little smaller wheels, 3.9 differential. That's the hot differential if you want to go fast in your MGA, you want to get high speed. Put that 3.9 differential in your A. You can put it on a T-type too, but sometimes you run into areas where you can be underpowered in a T-type with that diff. So the MGB is just great. I mean, it ran virtually unchanged from 62 through 67 to take a look at it. Oh, it picked up reverse lights and there are minor changes here and there. It went through a couple different engines. It started off with a very elementary 1800 engine. It looked exactly like an MGA engine. And then it picked up a Smith's PCV valve, because California was complaining just so much about the smog there. And then by 1968, it had come under a complete refurbishment so that it had dual circuit brakes and collapsible steering column and all those kinds of things, plus what they call the pillow dashboard. So 68 and 69, they're struggling trying to come up with a car that works well and so forth. It's a real transition, 68 and 69. By 73, 74, the car is really, really sweet again. So we'll dance away for just a minute and talk about the MGC. The big Healy, the Healy 3000 also was to undergo this massive change for safety. That had one long steering column that went right from the steering box right up to about 6 inches in front of your chest, so that if you were to stop suddenly, your chest would stop on the steering column. And so they were looking at redesigning the steering, redesigning the brakes, and the people in marketing said, you know what, we've run this same model since 1954. Let's just be done with it. So the factory, British Motor Corporation, decided, which had just become British Leyland in 68, 69, decided that they would put a 6-cylinder engine into an MGB called an MGC, altogether different torsion bar, front suspension. I hadn't seen that since the 30s on an MG. Girling brakes, I hadn't seen that since the Farina Mark III, Mark IV. And the twin cam used Girling. No idea why they used Girling on these instead of Lockheed. And the engine ended up being heavier and taller than the designers were told, so they had to bump out the bonnet to make way for it. There's even a little tiny fan up in the front to blow fresh air on the carburetor float bowls, so you don't have percolating gasoline while you're driving, certainly not when you're driving or after you've stopped. Very few MGCs still have that operational, although they could all stand to have it. They've got 15-inch wheels, but they only made 8,999 of these, because when it was released to the motor magazines and they went out and drove it hard, they didn't like the way it steered. So they wrote it up as being too front heavy and yada, yada, yada. So it was a loss to the factory. Now, with bias ply tires and some of the overheating problems taken care of, it is the fastest, it's the highest speed road car that MG's made. You can cruise in these at 120. I've never done that. I've talked to people who claim that they have. So it's a nice vehicle. But again, it's that 68, 69 interior. So you've got this pillow dash and there's no glove box. Heater controls are difficult to work. And it's got some downsides. By 1972, again, 72, 73, 74, the car gets to be as nice as it got in a chrome bumper version. No idea what kind of wheels these are. I don't recognize those wheels at all. But they came with two different styles. They came with wire wheels, as they always had, except the TD. And they came with row style wheels. RO for Ruberry Owen, RO. So if you're spelling it on your typewriter, I guess no one types anymore, it's capital O, capital R, capital O, RO style, but it's reduced to row style wheels. So anyway, they made the wheels. By now we've got side markers. We've got all kinds of safety equipment on the car. And some people refer to these as fish mouth MGs, but I don't like that appellation. That's not very, a recessed grill or black grill works. By 73, 74, they got the honeycomb grill and it's looking really sweet. George stops here. He doesn't go anywhere else. He's got this, what is this thing? It's some kind of Lotus, a Westlake. And I don't even, it must have some MG stuff to it or something. And then we've got a Morgan. George's book here is just really spectacular. If you can find a copy of this, all these line drawings are just, they're truly, truly beautiful.
John?
Yes.
That Indy Racer had a liquid suspension on it. That's how it got the MG logo on it.
Oh,
Same as the 1100s.
okay, all right. Okay, is that the one that ran at Indianapolis?
Yes.
Okay, so an MG did run at Indianapolis, if you can consider this an MG.
There's no liquid suspension on that car.
No, this doesn't look liquid, but something, yeah, something.
No,
So,
but there was one. There was one at Indy that did race. I don't even know if it finished.
true.
But it had liquid suspension.
It had the signage, but it did not have liquid suspension on it. I guarantee you.
Okay, well, something did that ran there. I've heard that over and over. So now I've got to figure out how to turn my share screen off. There we go. Okay, great.
John?
Just a second, Alan. Alan wants to talk about the Z-type magnet. So give the Z-type magnets your due, Alan.
No. I just wanted to thank you for featuring George Herschel's drawings. He was a wonderful man. I got to meet him once, and he gave me permission to use one of his drawings on my calling cards or business cards. So non-business card, actually. I just thank you. That's a really nice gesture.
Thanks. So in the world of MGBs, in 1974, we've got this funny long production period where the first 74s are made in September of 73, like most model years are. And those have chrome bumpers, dual carburetors, and dual circuit brakes. And then we come up to the 1st of January. Let me get this right here. The 1st of January, and we get these Sabrina overriders. TR6 went through that same thing too, those big block overriders. I often call them Dolly Parton overriders. So that, although if you see a picture, if you Google Sabrina, oh my gosh, you can understand why they were called Sabrina overriders. And anyway, so those big block ones remained on the car from January through the end of August 1973, and then 74, and then beginning in around the 1st of September 74 through the end of the year of 74, we had the raised ride height, the rubber bumpers, but still with dual carburetors and the standard dual circuit brakes. Once we break into 1975, then we pick up the single carburetor and the power brakes. But and we lose the front anti-sway bar in 74.5. Not all of them, just most of them in 75 and 76. By 77, they've got it under control again. And those cars, 77 through 80, are nearly indistinguishable. We used to give, at our big summer party, we had so many cars in those last couple of classes, call it 4B and 5B. We did 77, 78 in one group and 79, 80 in another group. And the only thing that I could find that separates them is the number of springs on the throttle return, which changed at the introduction of the 1978. They are absolutely clones of each other. 1980 has got some bizarre stuff. So in 1980, they're still trying to get the numbers up, the sales numbers. So they paint them black and put stripes on them and put some they're sort of like stag wheels on them, and call them an MGB limited edition. How limited is that? 6,667. So is it that limited? Well, out of 510,000, yeah, that's limited. But those are the black ones. Those are the really nice ones. So it's a wonderful post-war overview. The family cars go from Ys to Z-type magnets, ZA and ZB. And then there's the corporate car, the Farina magnet, which either, I think Johnson out from San Diego, Lee. He's about the only one that ever brings one to a meet. And then out came the mid-range car. They brought out the Mini around 1957 or so, called it the Austin 7, hence 7 Enterprises in California that sells all those parts. And then they upgraded the whole size. The whole size of the vehicle popped up a little bit, and we had the 11 and 1300s. And those are badged up as Austins, Morrises, Wolseleys, Rileys, MGs, and they changed just a little bit here and there. After that was done, the people's car became the Marina, but that was sold in England. A very few were sold here as an Austin Marina, but that's not an MG. The Mini, which was also badged up as a Wolseley Hornet, a Riley Elf. There are pictures, EX something or other, of an MG that has adopted that. I can't imagine they would have ever sold it under the name of the MG Nat, GNAT. But who knows? They never made any. So that's the quick overview, except for the MGB GT V8, which Costello started stuffing that aluminum V8, which Rover had purchased in 1963 from this country, and he put some into MGBs. It didn't go unnoticed by the factory, and the factory said, we can do that. So they designed this it's just the most wonderful car. The weight distribution front to rear on the MGB GT is 50-50. It's perfect. On an MGB, on a normal MGB, it's 52-48. I mean, it's almost perfect. But anyway, the BGT was just everything you could imagine it to be, and it was designed for the American market, just like the MGF was designed for. But the BV8 was so fast. I've told this story before. They made 7 or 8 left-hand drive American spec MGB GT V8s. I worked on Lyle York's at our old shop. And when they sent these over to 600 Willow Tree Lane to Jaguar Rover Triumph. Now imagine that that's the name of the import arm of British Leyland, Jaguar Rover Triumph, except that MG accounted for more than half of their sales. Okay, this corporate politics at its worst. So they brought the BGT over and gave it to the directors at JRT and said, what do you think? Think we can sell these? They said, oh my God, they're faster than the Jag. No, we won't sell them. So they only ended up making, I think, 2751 of them or something or other. Most of them were right-hand drive, either for sale in Japan, or excuse me, in England or Japan. And they made a very few left-hand drive ones for sale on the continent. So they've trickled into this country. You start to see an occasional one here and there. They're unbelievably fast. Now, there's a lot of homemade ones. Some are very, very nice, and they use that same aluminum V8 engine. I swear, if they brought those things in, they'd still be making them somehow. Those things are so great. Anyway, lots of other comments, but I've chewed up way too much time, and I want to get over to the chat section, unless somebody wants to weigh in and just say something else about the models or something I forgot.
Midgets?
Midgets, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, so that started off as the Bug-Eye Sprite. Yeah, it started off as the Bug-Eye Sprite, and in 1962, someone at BMC said, well, let's badge it up as an MG. Yep. That was the joke. They put a little chrome on it, charged 50 pounds more, and sold them. And then the Sprite ended its run in 69. The Midget continued its run, and I don't know how many of each were made, but in 1975, they put the Spitfire powertrain into them, the Spitfire 1500 engine and the single shaft gearbox that they used in the Marina. And now that little tiny body that was originally designed to carry 1,400 weights, I don't have my calculator here, but 100 weights, 112 pounds, it ain't much, it doesn't weigh much. You know, by 1975, we've got this really massive engine, this heavy cast iron gearbox, these heavy bumpers, reinforced doors. Oh my gosh. So Mark, do you know how many Midgets were made? No. So, but I'm not sure. I missed mentioning those at all. Sorry. Any more comments about the midgets? Or
I think it was 73,899 midgets.
No, it was more than that. It was 500,000.
John,
I
was
thought-
there any method to naming these cars? I know, you know, the TA and the TB and TC and TD. Why did they go with a letter series, and what was the thought behind all that?
You know, I'm sure it just has to do with advertising. You know, but these incremental changes. I mean, they came out with the MGT, and then to follow that, I mean, it looked all but the same car. They call it a TB because it's got a different engine. And then it's a little wider in 1946. So then it's a TC. There's no TE, I suppose, because it sounds funny. I mean, MG's it's an alphabet soup of models.
All of those were midgets up until the MGA.
Yes, they were.
Yes.
If you read the owner's handbook, it says MG Midget.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. So it's just titling. It's just, you know, it's just titling.
I'm sorry, yes, that 73,000 was just the 75 through 80.
Okay. 73,899.
Yeah,
I'll try to remember that.
I have one of the first 1,000 of those.
Okay.
Hey, John, Abingdon Spares just picked up a Y Salon. They've had it for about a year, perhaps that's the one you've been following.
Okay. Yep, I saw a Y up at at Peterborough from Ohio. And Old Farts Auto Parts. Yeah, so it's
Dave, it was Dave Smiddle's car.
Yep, Jack Smiddle's car. Yep. So that was Sean English who lives in the shadow of Mount Vernon in Washington, Northern Virginia. He bought a Y type, real nice Y type. They're really pretty. Mark Brandau has one in Minneapolis. There's a lot of woodwork that goes on the inside of those things. They're really, really spectacular as far as well appointed or well designed. But they're not well designed because if you have to repair something, that's a horror. But it's, from the artistic standpoint, it's really nice. They're really pretty. And the Z-type magnets, oh my gosh, Margaret Thatcher drove a Z-type magnet when she won her first by-election. It was sent to Parliament. Later on, she drove a 73 BGT Harvest Gold. So,
Yeah, John, if you Google MG liquid suspension IndyCar, you'll find the information at the MG Enthusiast.
okay, thank you.
It was produced by Quavel out in was it San Francisco? KJELL Quavel.
Oh, Cavalli, yeah.
Okay, yeah. He built the car, and apparently they said they raced it they competed from 64 to 69. And it does have the 1100 suspension. They listed as shocks. They listed as liquid suspension shocks. But yeah, if you Google it, because they had the car at French Lick.
Okay.
It was available at French Lick to take a look at.
So there are all these back in the day before all the television advertising. There were movies. I don't know where these movies were shown at theaters. I have not a clue. I mean, like advertising. And it was like, MG wins the ladies races in 1954. You can buy these on disc now. They're tremendous. But when they're talking about the MG 1100 with that suspension, they refer to it as suspensational.
That's what they call it.
So, anyway, I want to get over to chat and see what we have here on the chat tonight. And so the first one up is from Tom, and could you go over the procedure for replacing the rear bearing seals on a TD, or reference a video if available? If some of you've seen my videos, now they've all got numbers, and they've all got consistent titling, but we're still waiting. Marty and I are still working to get these into a grid. So I can say, oh, sure, just look at number 288, which is not the right number at all. Anyway, to get to those seals and to do it carefully and properly, the rear backing plates have to come off. So you take off the brake drums, back off the adjusters, remove the brake drums, remove the handbrake cable, and then it's just usually easier to disconnect the brake line rather than pull the whole backing plate beyond the end of the axle. Just take it loose. You have to bleed it afterwards. That's just the way it is. Now you've got a backing plate with the shoes and the cylinder and stuff like that. That comes off. That's a 3/8 British bolt back there, fine bolt and a bolt nut. You take those off. The backing plate comes off. Now you're there where you can take this cast iron piece that's about this big and hit it with a blunt chisel, tip it a little bit, tunk it off the axle. Then you can change the seal in there. And you can also take the intermediate piece that surrounds the half shaft and put that on your buffing wheel and make that shine. before you put it back together, make sure you put a lot of grease on the seal and on that collar, so that when the car begins to move, you haven't got a dry seal against that dry collar. And of course, before you start driving it, you should double check your fluid in the rear axle. So you don't have to go through all that. You can just take the drum off. You can take a great big screwdriver and just pry that thing out of there. And you can pry the collar out also with a pair of screwdrivers and buff it up. But if you want to do it carefully and do it nicely, you take off all those pieces. So anyway, one way or the other. One way probably takes 3 or 4 times. First way I described probably takes 3 or 4 times as long as the crew just push it out. So that's the same rear axle oil seal that MGBs used from 65 through 1980. So same rear axle, rear axle bearing, and the same collar. So, are you on, Tom?
On, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's
that
really
make sense?
helpful because I was having a hard time getting that collar piece off and getting to wonder if I was gonna do some damage to it, but I'll keep counting on it.
Well, as long as, it's got slits in the side.
It does, yes,
We used to take screwdrivers and push them into the slits.
yeah,
And then you
Got
can,
it.
can jam it a little bit, and it doesn't make, it's tapered there in the front. So, the brake drum comes over that taper. So if you bugger it up or put a lip in it or anything, it ain't gonna make any difference. What you don't want to damage, of course, is the surface that the seal rides on. So,
of course, yes. Thanks a bunch, that's really helpful.
okey doke, where are you?
I'm in Northern Virginia,
Very nice.
Herndon, Virginia, yes.
Okay, so here we got Charlie S. Still. I've got a 74 MGB GT chrome bumper. When I accelerate, it pulls slightly to the right, and when I let off on the throttle, it drifts back to the left. I've replaced the rear leaf springs, bought them from the United Kingdom, the U-bolts, the spring pads, and the springs came with new front and rear bushings. I can't find any deteriorated, easy for me to say, engine or tranny mounts. Any ideas? Yes, I've got your answer. Charlie, are you on?
I'm right here. Thank you, John.
So it's driving like a high-low, and what's happening if this is longitudinally, when you accelerate, the axle's turning like that. And when you decelerate, the axle's turning back like that. So it's the rear axle, which is angling ever so much in the back of the car because the U-bolts aren't tight enough. That's all.
So just tighten the U-bolts again?
Tighten them more, right? And sometimes this happens on an older car with older leaf springs. And when you go to tighten up the nuts, those 3/8 nuts, 9/16 deep socket, you can't tighten them up on the U-bolts because of the threads are all buggered up and all rusty and everything. So what we used to do is spin the nut off, put 4 flat washers, 3/8 flat washers up onto the bolt, tighten the nut up, and really, do that to all 4 studs on each side, both U-bolts on one side and both of them on the other side, and that'll take care of your problem. So absolutely.
Okay, good. Thanks so much.
All midgets, torque steering. And if you put your hand on the steering wheel, don't put it like that because then you want to correct, but you put it like this, you can, when it starts to get really exciting, you can change lanes, with a fast acceleration or deceleration. So.
Thank you very much.
Hey, you're very well. Where are you from?
Corvallis, Oregon.
Yeah, I've been there. We had our big MGB meet out there.
Yeah, it's been 8, 9 years ago.
Yep.
right on campus. I work on campus.
Okay, Jeff was the main man there. He helped
Yes, yep. Yeah,
organize
he's
that?
part of our club.
Yep, really tragic that he died in a car crash like that.
It certainly was.
He's a real peach of a guy. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. iPhone 5 to everybody. Would you kind of go over electric fans and coolants, weather additives, and anything regarding the cooling system on a 1970 MGB? So who's iPhone 5?
That's me, Sandy, Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, all right. Well, no wonder it's hot down there. Okay. So
Terribly hot.
the whole goal is to, that gallon of gasoline that you buy, just generally speaking, 1/3 of it goes to power if everything's perfect. 1/3 of it goes in the radiator, and 1/3 goes down the exhaust. If the tune-up is buggered up at all, then you're going to get less power at the flywheel and more in the exhaust or the radiator. So timing is always critical. On your car, vacuum disconnected at full mechanical advance, the timing should be 32 degrees. So to test that, you need a dial back timing light, disconnect the vacuum advance, and rev the thing, of course, you'll line on your belly like a snake with a dial back timing light, looking at the timing marks, while your associate revs it higher, higher, higher until it stops advancing. When it stops advancing, it should be at 32 degrees. So if you're off by more than 5 degrees, which is easy to be, then you can be making more heat in the radiator than you can dissipate. The next thing that's handy to do is to put the back of your hand up against the radiator when it's idling, and just go left to right, obviously on the front side, not on the back side, because you got a fan back there, but just feel across the radiator. And if there are some vertical rods that are clogged, it'll be so obvious. It's just, it'll feel like a cold stone that your hand's against. The back of your hand's pretty heat sensitive. If you've got a infrared pyrometer available to you, you can shoot it. Oh boy, that's really handy. It may be that the car isn't overheating at all, and you only think it is because all the sending units that are available, this is my understanding right now, all the sending units that you can buy are faulty. So I would encourage you to call Glenn's MG service in St. Petersburg, and ask him for his instructions, because he's in Florida and he deals with this kind of stuff all the time. But I know that your temp gauge can easily read, start to read too high. And in fact, it's not high at all. So the only way to make sure is to take a temperature reading from right underneath the thermostat on the cylinder head. And you should expect to find 195, 200 degrees in there. That's about what the car likes to run at. Some people put in aluminum radiators.
I have aluminum radiator.
Okay, the electric cooling fans, I don't think do anything. I'm not altogether sure that it depends on the type of driving you do. For a lot of city driving, those fan shrouds can help. But at high speed, I don't think it makes any difference. So that's about the size of it.
Do you have any concerns about adding the wetter compound, the wetter
I don't know.
to the coolant?
I don't think it hurts anything. I don't know if it's snake oil or not. You can try it and see, and it isn't going to hurt anything. So.
Okay. And I presently have the yellow fan in front, and then a puller fan behind in the engine bay pulling. I also bought a 16-inch as opposed to the 4th, and want to change it. You think that will have any effect?
Before you spend any more money on those parts and stuff, get a real true reading of what's going on. I mean, everybody had those infrared pyrometers when they were checking you going into McDonald's and so forth a year ago. they probably don't go up to 212 degrees, but be bad if our body temperature got that high. But those things with a laser pointer that they point at your head, I don't know what those cost at Harbor Freight or someplace, or whether you can just go down to your local repair shop and give somebody $10 and say, hey, just come out and shoot my radiator and my cylinder head and see if the temperature that you're getting there is really high. And as long as the car doesn't overflow while you're driving it, or doesn't boil over after you've turned it off, then it's not too hot. You can get up to 230. So what? Unless it's starting to boil the gasoline. And that's a real problem. The under bonnet temperatures just skyrocket after you turn the car off. I believe in Florida, high test gasoline has no alcohol. Gasoline with alcohol boils at a much lower temperature. So if you've got running or restart problems because of the heat, you can get out of that some by paying what, $6? I don't know. I buy high test in my.
I'm running high test
Okay.
because of that. Yeah, I did that. That's just a cheap price to pay, cheap premium and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't believe that changing the 14-inch to a 16 will do anything?
Don't know. Haven't been there.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Get a real good shot of what the temperature actually is.
He's saying at the radiator and at the head.
Right below where the thermostat is in the cylinder head. I can tell you that I was in Grapevine, Texas at an MGB meet in 2002, 2001, long time ago now. And there was a guy from New York State who was in line for my rolling tech. And he goes, this thing's been overheating for 1.5 years. And I'm thinking, well, you're in Grapevine, Texas. I can hardly breathe. If it was overheating, you wouldn't be here. So I knew that he immediately, I knew that he'd got something wrong. So he opened up the bonnet and it looked like he'd been an HVAC engineer, and he had all these aluminum or stainless steel things all in place to push the air through the radiator. And oh my gosh, he had all this stuff in place. And I said, well, how do you know it's running too hot? He says, well, the gauge says it's hot. And I said, well, maybe the gauge is wrong. And I could see this light bulb go off. And as it turns out, somebody put a voltage stabilizer, replacement voltage stabilizer underneath his dash, hadn't grounded it. He was getting full battery voltage. So his gas gauge and his temp gauge were reading high. And I hooked up the old stabilizer, which seemed to work just fine. And immediately it started sitting on normal. And his wife came up, almost kissed me. She goes, oh my gosh, he's been obsessing about this for 2 years. So anyway, just make sure the gauge is correct. And
I see. Thank you. If I may, just one fast question.
Amazon, I bought one. Amazon carries that pyrometer for $25. It's an awful cheap and easy way to find out if your gauge is really working.
One of those infrared guns?
$25.
Yeah, they're not expensive. They're not really expensive.
I think they were under $20 at Harbor Freight.
Yeah, real cheap. I like the one from Amazon because it's lasted almost a year. The one from Harbor Freight lasted 8 months.
Yeah, you Harbor Freight, you got to be careful what you buy.
Mine came from Snap-on, so I don't dare tell you how much mine cost.
John, can I
I
ask
think
one
they
fast
take a little
question?
bit, they worry a little bit more about the overheating of the engine than there actually are. You figure that's a cast iron engine. Those engines back in the 50s, they used to take a lot of heat. In fact, if they steamed over, most of the guys used to just pull over, open the bonnet, let the engine cool, and then go on later on.
It's a durable engine, and it'll run it all day at 220. No problem. Talk to any MGA owner who's got the same engine. Some of them run it at a higher temp than that, but so it's only if it evidences itself in some other way than the needle position, like hard to restart or losing your ability to hold idle or something at a stoplight, stop sign.
Or steam coming out of the engine and compartment.
Yeah, that would do it. Yep. So, okay, well, hey, and if, you know, you can always call Glenn at Glenn's MG service. So
May I ask one more, John,
yeah,
can I ask one fast question?
yes, sir.
I bought one of those cigarette voltmeter indicators. What
Okay.
should it be, the normal idle voltage?
Idle, I don't know. I mean, probably around 12 volts or something, but when you're running down the road, you should have 14 volts.
13.8, good?
Yep, it's close enough.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Dan to everybody. My electric fans on my 79 MGB shut off when the ignition is turned off. I think they should run for a while to cool. Are my fans set up properly? Dan, are you on?
I'm on, John.
Okay, so in 1977, they were wired to run whether the key was on or not. It caused so many problems, people's batteries going dead, draining the batteries down so much, because sometimes they'd run for 20 minutes after you shut the car off. People would come in your office and say, hey, you know, Charlie, your engine's still running out there. So they rewired it so that the fans would go off when the key turned off. It'll be just fine to leave it that way. But if you want to have them run, you go to the third fuse down, and there's a white with a brown tracer. There's two of them on there. One of them's your fans. Can't tell you which one, but you can move that down to the bottom fuse, which is hot all the time, and then the fans will run when the car is off. Experiment with it.
You think it hurts to just leave the ignition on and let them run for a little bit? I open the hood and let them
I wouldn't
run.
leave the ignition on. I wouldn't do that, because then if the point, well, I don't know, probably electronic, the coil's heating up and the fuel pump's under stress and trying to push fuel, and that isn't good. So you can move it. It's just pulling off of the single white with brown wire off that third fuse. But I think it's a single white with brown. I think the other white with brown is paired. In other words, there's a pair going into a single spade.
So then that would be power on, and it would run until the thermostat calls to shut it off.
Correct.
Okay, well, I might give that a try. I've been
Or the battery goes dead.
Hey, John,
Yes.
as a suggestion, how about moving it to where it's on when in the accessory position?
You could do that, but there's not a wire that's available under the bonnet that's white with green.
No.
John, when that fan is running, you're not circulating, the pump's not running, so there's no water or cooler circulation.
Thermosiphon, you know, I mean, and I know people who've had those fans, and sometimes, depending on the ambient temperature, those things will run for 20 minutes. So, and nothing takes any more power in the car except the starter motor than those fans. The original fans are so strong. They're so nice. So anyway, just experiment with it. You'll find out real quickly, you know, if it's a good idea or not.
Thanks a lot, John. It's good talking to you.
Where from, Dan?
Mequon, Wisconsin, just north of Milwaukee.
Yeah, sure. Okay. All right, from Paul to everybody, 77 MGB, engine oil change around a year ago, VR1. I've only done 760 miles, and it resides in a non-climate controlled garage. Should I change the oil? That's not enough, not 760 miles. That's not enough. You know, if you've got a couple thousand miles, well, first of all, the rule is you change the oil every year just before you store the engine, and you change it then so that the acids in the water in the oil don't don't work together to eat the bearings. I've got wonderful pictures of eaten up bearings. It looks just like there were worms, metal worms inside the bearings, just T-types that sat still for 40 years, just unbelievable damage. But not after 760 miles. But anyway, the rule is you change it every year before you store it, so it's stored with clean oil. But I wouldn't change it until you get a couple of thousand on it. That would seem okay. Paul, are you on right now? Maybe Paul hasn't got audio, but anyway, that's the scoop. So, okay, Larry Prang. My first wire rimmed glasses came from an optometrist in Kalamazoo, Michigan, named Prang. John, last year I bought my 57 MGA. I brought my 57 by your shop, and you did a video assessment trying to determine why I had low oil pressure, 10 pounds at idle, 60 pounds when revved. I mentioned that I had replaced the oil pressure relief spring. Since then, I also replaced the oil pump, all the rod bearings in the center main. Finally, after a year, I figured it out. I think I only replaced the pressure relief spring and not the valve. I thought I would try the oil pressure relief spring and valve. Aha, I cannot get the valve out. Aha, interesting. I believe it's stuck in a slightly open position, thus relieving the oil pressure at those low speeds. So there's a couple different ways to get that oil pressure relief valve out. One is to take the cap and the spring out, of course, and start the car up. There's a lot of pressure there. It'll shoot it out, make a horrible mess, but
you know what? I did that actually, and it didn't come out.
Okay. The next way is to take a tap and go in there, and it's pretty hard metal, but usually you can, if you push a tap in there and start to turn it, you can start to grab some thread on the inside of the valve and start to, at least it'll start rotating the valve, and then maybe between oil pressure and so forth, you can get it out. It's not, I don't think it's a half an inch.
Actually, I started doing that. I have a 14 millimeter that fits in there. And so I started to do that. I just was like, I kind of gave up. I'll try it again. I'll put a little more effort into it.
Okay. Well, today, for instance, I was taking a clutch slave cylinder apart. I was using compressed air, creepy, because that piston and spring and stuff that's in there will go a long way across the shop with a trail of brake fluid behind it, taking paint off everything it comes in contact with. So I was doing it in a rag and everything, and I put, I don't know what line pressure I got right now, 70, 80 pounds. That piston will only come out so far. So I jammed it back in and then used my dingleberry brush, inch and eighth brush, and cleaned up the inside of the bore, and then it popped out. So maybe if you had like a rifle cleaning brush, 50 caliber, something like that, something that's about the right size with steel bristles on it, and just go in there. I mean, how do you do that and everything? But you can always take a piece of rubber hose and put it over the cleaning brush and clamp it, and then put the rubber hose on a stud that comes out of the end of the drill, and so you can get around the corner.
Yeah.
Won't last forever, but it'll work for a while.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about just putting the plug in without the spring and starting it up again, but this time revving it up to higher, getting it way up there where I was getting 60 pounds of pressure, and see if maybe that would blow it out.
Of course, if it's just sitting off its seat just a bit, all that oil goes there. So what you got to do is get a punch and a hammer and drive the valve all the way home again.
Yeah.
And then try to pop it out, and then drive it home again. try to pop it out. Some it will come out.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's
Okay,
hope that's it. Thank you.
good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, Mike. Mike C, it says MA. Oh, Massachusetts. Ah, so that's where the row style came from, correct. Yep, Ruberry Owen. Jay Miller. Please, who is the author and title of the book being referred to? Okay, so let me hit share screen in just a minute. Oh, come on, just a minute. Share screen. Okay, here we go. Okay, let me go up to the very beginning of this. And it's MG by George Herschel. So you can read that, George Herschel. It's not a commercially published book. It's a privately published book. It's really, really cool. So,
John, this is Jay Miller. Do you know where that's attainable? Do you know where those can be found?
no, his son had maybe 50 copies of it, and they all sold out. And some people, Tony Choviak and Jeff Fields, did not, either weren't there, didn't jump fast enough to get theirs. And I got one through another guy that bought a bunch of them in bulk. So I don't know. It's one of those things you got to hunt for.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so let's see, just a minute here. I scrolled down way too quickly. Just a minute here. Oh my gosh, where am I? Just a minute. I'm sorry, I've lost my place on the chat. But I'm coming back. Here we go. Okay. All right, so Chip, Eurykio, what's the difference between a Mark I, a Mark II, a Mark III, and a Mark IV MGB? Well, they're all advertising names. They all change between United States, Canada, and England. England loves to use those Mark I's, 2s, and 3s. So we've got the Mark I's are absolutely 63 through 67. The Mark IVs, I want to say, are 77 through 80s. Only on the Canadian vehicles do they have a bumper sticker or a decal that rode above the chrome strip. It said Mark IV on the back of them. But Mark III and Mark II and Mark III, I haven't got a quick answer for that.
Oh, thank you, John.
So where are you from, Chip?
Southeast of Houston, right on the water, Galveston Bay.
Galveston, all right. I was in Halifax a couple of years ago. So between those two cities, they've suffered the largest port explosions, I think. And the Galveston was during the Second World War?
1940s, I think.
Oh, okay, right. I know Halifax was World War I. So we've got GHN3, GHN4, GHN5. So I don't know. That's an interesting question. I can't tell you that. I'm embarrassed. I'm supposed to know this stuff. So this is your assignment, Chip. You look it up, and next time we have our session, weigh in with the answer. So, but now I'm interested. Okay, so Kathy, to everybody, I'm experiencing intermittent miss all of a sudden. I ruled out fuel issues, including float levels. Could it be the rotor, cap, or wires? I currently have a Pertronics, and I've checked for ground. So Kathy, are you on?
Yeah, it's not really Kathy, but yes.
You look like Kathy. So, in intermittent miss, what happens to the tachometer during that intermittent miss?
I'm too busy paying attention to the road to see what happens, just because it's starting to cut out and die.
I understand.
So instead of looking at the tach, I'm looking for a place to pull over.
Okay, what year and model is it?
It's a 50 TD.
Okay, all right. And you've got a Pertronics unit in the distributor.
Yes.
What kind of coil is it?
I can't tell you because it came original to the car when I bought it back in 1995.
Well, coils can and do go bad. You can temporarily duct tape a coil to the other one, and see if that's it. But, and it's not that the tach isn't going to tell you anything because it's not a tach, it's a rev counter. So it's just counting the RPMs off the back of the dynamo. It's got nothing to do with the primary side of the circuit. I wonder what happens with the ignition warning light. I wonder if that comes on at the same time.
I didn't see it, and that's usually bright enough for me to see.
Okay, because if the key switch, one of the white wires on the back of the ignition switch, something or other was making or breaking a contact, then that could stop it from running. I had a guy who had a break inside the ammeter. The bus bar inside the ammeter wasn't making good contact. So we took all the wires off either side of the ammeter and just put them together. He hasn't had the problem since. And his is just quit, and then it start right back up again at some point in the future. So it's really hard to find intermittent stuff, but if the whole car shuts off so quickly, if it's a fuel issue, it runs crappy for a little bit first and then shuts down. And it can be the fuel pump. It can, because the fuel pump, if it's not pumping like it should, the front float bowl will go empty first, and then you're only running on the rear float bowl, and it's running kind of crappy, and then it kills. Here's another thing you can do the next time it happens is just take the key switch and turn it on and off real fast a couple of times while you're still in traffic and slowing down. And if that makes it catch, that can be because the fuel pump is so that surge of electricity through there starts to go through the points again. But that's only if it runs crappy first. If it's just that instantaneous where it just stops, that's ignition. So you just have to go connection by connection.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could be more help. Where are you calling from?
Elk Grove, California.
Where's that?
Just south of Sacramento.
Okay, so that fire in Mariposa is 100 miles from you.
Yeah, we're not getting any smoke yet because we have the Delta breezes, and it's pushing everything to the east. But yeah, it'll be on us soon enough. It's pretty sad.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So John?
Yes.
I talked to you last time and I had the same issue. And I changed the coil and it's all gone. So it's, that worked for me. And as far as the fuel, I don't know about his gauge, but on my gauge in my 63, I can see the pump taking the current. It has a little bump.
Little flick.
So you can look at the gauge and know if the fuel pump is actually working or not.
Yep, on the TD, there's only a light that comes on. There's no gauge.
Okay.
So yeah, watching that flick,
that little tick,
you can see every time the fuel pump cycles. This is
exactly
like your oil pressure gauge as the oil pressure relief valve cycles. at idle, you know, where the oil pressure, my MGA was doing that today, flicking between about 40 and 60 at idle. You know,
Yep.
it gets high enough, it blows the valve off, pressure comes down too low, the spring pushes it back up into place. Yep. And
Right.
I had a Daimler, an Empress, great big car for a while, and that had a thermostat on it, and you could see the thermostat open and close because the temp gauge would go up and then it'd come down, and then it'd go up and then it would come down. That was cycling, but he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that.
Okay, just thought I'd add in.
Thanks.
Hey, John,
Yes.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
If his distributor has the screw-on terminals, those terminals can loosen up and that'll cause a high-speed miss or intermittent.
Okay. Okay. My experience is with, if you got a Pertronix, you shouldn't be using straight wire. You should be using resistor wire. And I had this, I think I mentioned this last time or something, with the strangest thing up in Peterborough. Dave Smittle drove that Y-type onto the field and running just fine. Goes to take it off at the end of the day after people come by and complimented him all day. Since no good deed goes unpunished, his car wouldn't start. And he was in the process, I think of, no, this is another guy with a TF. And he was in the process, when I came upon him, he was in the process of changing the plate, which held all the switching for the Pertronix. And the new plate wouldn't work, and he had to file that and get it all into place, got the whole thing hooked up, and the car still didn't run. He goes, I guess it's time to change the coil. I said, stop, let's diagnose it first, you know, if we can. And it turned out that the wire from the coil to the cap was a resistor wire, and it burned up inside for a while, and it was too long. The gap was too long and the spark wouldn't make it anymore. So we shortened up the wire just a bit. Anyway, point being that those resistor wires are hard to make fit with the aluminum, with those little tiny copper washers that fit down inside the cap. What I've done in the past is take my Arrow stapler and shot out 6 staples, take the U shape of the staple and bend one lead up and push that with a washer on it, push that up into the wire. And so you're not crunching that resistor wire underneath there. So that's one way to make a better connection down there. So
John, while you're talking about wires, does the length make any difference? I mean, the wires that wire set that I've got came from Napa. It's not the right set, but they were the only one open that day, and they're much too long. Can I just cut them and put new ends on them?
Sure.
Doesn't matter.
No, no, just fine. But my experience with the Pertronix is that if you got straight wire, you can get some feedback, some high voltage, and it'll burn the Pertronix out. At least that's the only reason I could figure out why I lost 2 Pertronix in 2 weeks.
Well, mine's electronic, but not Pertronix.
Okay. Okie doke. So here we got Scott Coles. Hey, John, I've got a 73B and think there may be a problem with my steering. The 3 most important parts of the car: the brakes, the steering, and the brake lights. So my steering is stiff, doesn't want to return to center after return. If I don't steer it back to center, it would just keep going in a circle. This is my first MG and have only had it a short time, so I don't know, how it's supposed to feel.
Oh, it's nothing important. Excuse me, but I think he's taking it.
I've got this powerful button here that says mute all. And I just used it there. Not because I don't like it, but to get rid of background noise. Other small cars I've had without power steering always seem to return to the center on their own. Absolutely. So Scott, are you still on?
I'm here, John.
Okay, absolutely. You go around a corner, you let your hands go, it should come right back to center. So
Yeah, it does not do that.
yeah, so there's a couple reasons why it may not. It might be the left kingpin is frozen. It might be the right kingpin is frozen. It might be that the rack and pinion is bent. I had a customer one time who said, I called him up because I said, geez, I can barely steer your car. What's going on? He goes, you know, that happened right at the end. My dad and I were towing it down to your shop with a chain hooked around the rack and pinion, you know, and so he must have stopped a bit too fast and took that rack and just bent it, and the rack wouldn't go through there. So you've got to get the front end of the car up in the air, you know, use a trolley jack and put some jack stands underneath there, and then have someone turn the steering wheel left and right and look. And if you can see that the top of the kingpins want to move while you're turning it, I mean, they're going to move more than a couple degrees, but the top of the kingpin where it goes into the shock is absolutely fixed, and the kingpin is designed to spin freely around it. So sometimes it's just a kingpin, which is bad. Might be the rack and pinion, which is frozen, but it's something you want to get sorted out pronto. Where are you calling from?
Massachusetts.
Okay, all right.
North of Boston.
You do some of your own work?
Most of it, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, just, you know, if you got a question, you can get in touch with me. You can, I'm going to say you can disconnect the tie rod from the tie rod end. There's a big nut, 7/8 or something.
Right.
I think bigger than 13/16. You crack that loose, put a paint mark on the tie rod, and then take a pair of vice grips and unscrew it and count the number of turns that it comes off. Because when you put it back on, you've got to get it back in. Once you get those off, you can feel the left kingpin. It should be just floppy loose. Take the wheel, tire, and just floppy loose. And so you can disconnect those three things from each other. The kingpins.
I also wasn't sure if it had something to do with the shims in the rack and pinion, if they were not enough or something.
It could. That'd be pretty bizarre that someone took out too many shims. It could. But this way you'll find out for sure. Now you can take that that pack out. It's just two coarse 5/16 bolts, and it's just a 1/2 inch wrench. So you take those loose and push up on the end of the rack, grab the gator and push up, and that lifts a little plunger up a little high so you can grab it with a pair of pliers and rotate it up out of there, and then fill the rack and pinion with 90-weight gear oil.
I've been working my way through this. I bought it and it wasn't running, and it runs like a top now. All that's great, but the steering is my next stop on the list.
The steering's dangerous. So
yeah. It steers fine. It's just it doesn't seem right to me.
It could be that something's bent. I mean, it could be deeper than the caster's buggered up. But usually you can see if it's been hit that hard, you can see there's damage in the frame rails between.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. It does have oversized tires, which are not helping the situation either.
But it should still snap back. Yeah, you want to find some nice, like 175 14s, 175 70s. If you got 205s or 215s on there, that's really bad. But when you go around the corner, I would think that those would tend to straighten you out faster than the narrow wheels.
Oh, really? Okay.
Call me.
Give me some. I'll disconnect the tie rods. That sounds like a great.
Okay, and then it's immediately obvious where the problem is.
I did just replace the upper and lower dampers. I mean the front dampers, both sides, and had no. That didn't reveal anything. I changed them because they were out of oil, and I bought redone ones from WWII.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Which, by the way, that's a class action outfit. That's a good outfit.
That's really, really nice. You talked to Jane when you called probably, or Peter.
I did, yeah.
And he's been doing those for a long time. It's real high quality. It's really
Yeah,
straightforward.
first class outfit. And also another, I was listening the other night and you mentioned once again the MG's Forever video. And I was finally able to find that just the other day. Very difficult to find, but the line drawings from earlier, the gentleman in there, one of the guys.
Bean the Peen.
Yes, the pen, yeah.
New Zealand accent is Ben, B-E-N, the pen. But
Ben the pen, yeah.
But when you hear him say it, it's Bean the Peen. Yeah. Yep. He's got
very fun to watch.
I think when he had an MG Metro or something too, 0 to 60, and I don't know.
Yeah, he had one of only 2 of some model.
Something. Yep.
Very fun to watch.
Hey, great. Thank you for finding it.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Gary Greenspan, I got to be leaving my house in a couple of minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt here. I was driving my car on my favorite Pacific Marine Circle route. I hit a really bad pothole, so bad that my chrome ring popped off. But the car seems to run fine. Is there anything I should be checking?
No, just continue to drive it, but pay attention. I mean, the tire might go flat. I mean, there's 100 things that might happen. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Gary. All right. Okay, so Pat G. Oh, I'm wrong. The MG liquid suspension did have hydroelastic. All right, so, yep, we got that. Ruth Arnold. Yeah, we're still waiting to hook you up with Norm Ewing.
Yeah, I'm not giving up. I'm being very patient.
Yep. They got terrible power. I don't know why. Why would they shut your power off at night? I mean, wouldn't they shut it off during the day? I mean, that's when the load is. But anyway.
Yeah, they're South African, so who knows what they.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Ruth says that her 74.5 MGB GT is the best car ever. You must have had a front sway bar added to that.
I have no idea, but whatever. She's just been a great car since day one.
Wonderful.
I don't have another car right now. I haven't had for years. And if I drive anywhere, I drive her.
Hey, I was out in my 62 MGA today. So, yeah.
It's the only time when I don't love her so much is as recently it's been sort of in the 90s and humid in Alexandria, Virginia. And if you get stuck in traffic, not really fun, but that's all right.
You have to put your foot on the throttle and just keep it revved up. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's just that I get hot. She's all right. I'm the one who comes home with my clothes sticking to my back, but that's all right.
Ruth, you're from the greater DC area.
Yeah, Alexandria, Virginia.
Right.
Good friend of Randy Shuck.
Yep, I just talked to Randy today.
Oh, did you? Oh, great. Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, good guy.
All right.
But thank you, John. Really enjoy these sessions.
Thank you. From Dora, MGA 1500 running rich. What to do now? Well, adjust it leaner. So where's Dora?
Well, it's actually Rudy.
Okay.
And
Rudy.
I'm just on the wife's laptop, so it comes up as Dora. But you know, we've been together so long that people call me Dora. Anyway, so I've gone through the repair manual and checked the floats, and that's fine. And then they get into check the height of the needle. Are you able to do that with the carburetors in the car?
Yes, you can do everything on an MGA. You can do all of that. So if you're concerned that the float height might be wrong, you can take the banjo bolt loose, the fuel banjo bolt loose.
Okay.
Whether you're a 1/2-inch British wrench or a 13/16 American, and spin that off, and then take the float bowl lid off by the 5/16 British cap screw in the middle, or use your 13mm wrench and get that upside down, flip it upside down, and make sure that on the fork, you know, that you can put that
drill bit.
7/16 drill bit through.
Yep,
If that's pretty much okay,
okay,
it has to do with the height of the jet. So the jets are located right at the very center at the bottom of the carburetor, right
Yep.
down, right down at the very bottom. And you can, even with the air cleaners on, as long as there's nothing else in the way, you can get your hand, I can get my hand down past the radiator and underneath the rear carb and underneath the front carb while the car is running. Creepy. People watch me do that and they go, oh my God, what would happen if the fan hit your elbow? And it's like, well, I guess I wouldn't be able to fix any more cars today, but I'm able to do that and get underneath there. So if you do that, you can screw the nut up. But before you even do that, reach underneath there and just push and make sure that the brass linkage, those arms that come up,
yes,
and make sure that those are all the way home, that the jets are pushed all the way up, because sometimes when you let the choke off, they'll come down and they'll still be a 64th of an inch or something or other, and they aren't quite home. And 2 or 3 flats, which is, I don't know, 24 thousandths of an inch or something. 3 or 4 flats can make all the difference in the world on how the richness is.
son of a gun.
Make sure that those are all the way home. Once you've done that, and you're sure, then you have to lift the air piston ever so slightly while it's running and judge the change in RPM. And if the RPM speed up too much, you've got to move that nut up, and you move it in 1s and 2s. And then rev it up between every adjustment that you make, let it come back down to idle and check it again.
All right. Sounds like fun.
Hey, you can do it. I'm going to be home all day tomorrow, working on indexing some of those YouTube videos and building out. I'm trying to build a complete list of all MG books, and I've got. I think I've got most of them myself, and I've been working with WWII up by Toronto. Anyway, I'll be here tomorrow.
Okay.
So call me if you want some more instruction on that.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thank you, John.
Hey, you're welcome. Okay, Pat G's weighed in again here. Al Moss, Wise Saloon, was recently sold by Skip Kelsey's widow. Chrome wires and a supercharger. Yep, Skip Kelsey I think he was a retired policeman, and he started selling parts. My gosh, he's been passed away for at least a dozen years, hasn't he, Pat?
I'm not sure on that, John, but I was tempted to bid on that car. But I don't need another MG.
my girlfriend, who won't ride my MGA, says the only one she likes is a Magnet. So I talked to Alan Batchelder the other day, and I said, Alan, what's a really nice Z-type Magnet going to cost me? And he had a couple of them that he knew about that were mid-high 20s. Yeah, but one of them had a supercharger, and I thought, well, that's nice. So. Yep.
Nice saloons. Yep.
Yep. Pete Price, hey, from Ann Arbor. Please suggest a fix for my 73 midget with locked up front brakes. Rear drums are okay. So Pete, are you on?
Yep, here, John. Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks for all your notes that you send me that I don't respond to. Thank you very kindly.
I sent you the EV story there a few weeks ago, but that's okay.
The reason that the front brakes are locked up is one of two. Either the front brake hoses have collapsed on the inside, so you can push fluid through them, but the fluid can't get back out of the caliper, and you can tell instantly if that's the problem. No, just a minute. It could be the front hoses, or it could be the brake pedal switch that controls the free play on the brake pedal. So if you can move the brake pedal half an inch, tunk, 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 then crack the bleeders loose in the front, relieve the pressure, and then see if they turn. If that's the case, it's the hoses. If there's no free play on the brake pedal, then unscrew that brake light switch, which of course you can't do because originally, because it's horizontal and there's not enough room. So you end up having to adjust the body there with a big drift and a hammer, so you can turn that brake light switch. But it's one of those two things.
Well, that's a good point, because I just put a new brake switch in.
There we go. Okay.
And the brakes, everything was fine. I just didn't have brake lights. I went and got the switch, and you're telling me it's in too far.
It's in too far. So back it off.
Yeah.
Right now you got no free play. So as though you're driving around with your foot on the brake.
Right.
You got no free play now. So back it off a full turn, feel it, back it off another full turn, feel it.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
Gosh. Wow, that's great. Hey, what's your website again?
It's University Motors Ltd, like limited, University Motors Ltd.com.
Oh, okay. All right. All set. And your suggestion is there used to be a guy on your side of the state that was a part supplier, I can't remember, he had a nickname.
Well, there's Engel Imports in Zoo.
Are they gone?
No, they're still there.
Oh, okay.
1-800-900-2905.
Yeah, I thought I tried them. I didn't get through. 800-900, what was it?
2905.
2905. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll if I need something, I'll give them a try. But thanks for the tip on the brake switch. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
That one was easy. Okay. So next one we got is Owen O in high school. Recently given the opportunity to have an MGB for a daily driver if I was able to get it running. Hey, you can do this. It's a 69 and it could use a little bit of love, I bet. However, in particular, the sills are rusty along the floor panels in some other areas. I was wondering how much rust is too much rust, and is there any way that I can preliminarily determine if it is worth the time and effort? If it's a free car, it's worth the time. How can I determine if the frame is safe for daily driving? By opening the door, Owen. Open the door. Open the door. If you can open the door and close the door, it's okay. As long as when you're sitting on the seat, and you're bouncing up and down a little bit, it doesn't feel like the seat's going to break out of there. But it's a very, very strong construction. You can take an MG. Are you still on, Owen?
Yes, sir, I am.
Hey, great. Where are you calling from?
Central Virginia.
Okay. So the cars will suffer lots and lots and lots of rust. I mean, sometimes it isn't worth fixing them, but they'll suffer lots of rust. But the door is really the telltale part. If you can open the door and close the door, you're still doing okay. We used to put wood floorboards in them sometimes. Take the seat out and you'd get some pieces of cardboard and snip and trim them and put them together with duct tape until you had a great big pattern, and then lay it down on a piece of 3/8 plywood. Of course, that's only $700 now. I don't know how much plywood is. Everything's expensive. And do an outline and then cut it and lay it down inside the car. Make sure it fits. Then get some tar. I used to use roofing tar, but that can leave a smell inside the car. You got to get something in there to goo it to the existing floor, and then of course you have to find the original holes that the seat bolts go through. But you can put a wood floor in there, and it's nice and strong. You go, a wood floor in my car? Is that even safe? But you walk on a wood floor in your house. So a wood floor is perfectly safe in your car. I've got one in my MGA. All the T-types have them. We used to do that on Bs. We had, as a matter of fact, we had patterns hanging on the wall so we could cut out floorboards. If you do go to that extent and put a wood floorboard on the right-hand side, remember that all the cables and the fuel line and the battery line, all that kind of stuff run just on the inside of the frame rail on the right-hand side. So if you're drilling to put nuts and bolts through or something or other, don't drill there. Get in trouble. So hey, well, that's nice. Oh, and if you have, if you got questions about, how to make that run and everything, please give me a call. I'm more than happy to help you out. If you go to my website, universitymotorsltd.com, on the top ribbon, there's one of the buttons up there is, forms, something like that. And
Yeah,
it's got a complete lubrication on there, and it's every single thing that you can attend to. And of course, it'll say, oil the rack and pinion. It's like, where's that? What is that? What do you mean oil it? There's lots of questions, but I'm happy to answer those for you if you want to call. But arm yourself with some information also, and get a workshop manual for the car. You can find it. I don't know if you can find it online. I know you can buy DVDs. Those are out of date. You can probably get it on a thumb drive or something. Or actually get a used copy off eBay or something. But it's so handy to have that, and it just helps you understand what's going on. Where are you calling from, Owen?
Charlottesville, Central Virginia.
Okay, all right. Well, Randy Shuck is in Midland, Virginia, and he's got a lot of stuff that might be able to help. I don't know how far he is from you, but he's got a lot of stuff that's available. He's got a shop. So tomorrow, whenever the time is convenient, call me. My number's on my website too, and I can help you out with ideas and get you going. But as far as the rust, it's hardly ever an issue. If you wanted to say, I want to fix the car up, then I'd argue with you and say, if the rust is too bad, don't start with another car. But this is the car you got, start with this one. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Owen.
Yep.
If I could just add to John's comments and reiterate, John is serious when he says call him. Welcome to the world of British cars. You're going to need a lot of help, as all of us on this Zoom do. Feel free to call him. I'm speaking in place of John, obviously, but also on the chat, I'm going to send you my email address. Feel free to contact me. You never know. And if there's a British Car Club close to you, I strongly encourage you to join that. It's a world of information that you can all share together. Congratulations on your new car.
Perfect, thank you.
Do we add on to about going into MG experience? That could help him also.
Okay.
Good idea.
That's true. There's MG experience. It used to be .net, but I think he's picked up the .com now. But somebody will write in there and say, how do I put oil in my rack and pinion? And you've got extremely divergent views, sometimes flame wars that go up. And sometimes on that site, because of the volume of information, it's difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff sometimes. But if you call me, of course, it's only my opinion, but it's practiced and it's experienced. So anyway, but knowledge is power. So read all you can.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okie doke, Scott Lynn. 2 online references say, 236,089 MG midgets were built from 61 through 80. 236,089. Scott, thank you. I can't remember that number. I almost remember the 53,899 or something. I almost remember that former number. So
yeah, that other number is sprites and midgets.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's see. Barney Gaylord, Hey, Barney, you're on tonight. If you have time and you run through the series of SU carburetors and tell which ones had throttle shaft bushings cast in or pressed in or no bushings. Someone just told me my MGA H4 carbs had cast in bushings. Barney, I'm not the carburetor expert, but we've got the carburetor expert on. So I just don't know.
John, who are you talking about?
You, Fred. Fred's the SU carburetor expert. Fred is the only person in the world who has spent hours going through SU carburetors and developing a chart that helps you understand what the date code is. So the date code isn't very handy. It's not like on a Lucas distributor that gives you a month and a year, or a week and a year. It's combinations, an alphanumeric combination that only made sense to the people at SU. But Fred knows more about SU carburetors than anybody. So, I mean, not more than Joe Curto. I don't mean that, but I mean about changes and stuff like that. Fred's real expert. So
the H4s do have a cast-in bronze bushing, and they can be drilled out and replaced. You know, the Moss and a lot of other people, Joe Curto, sell the bushings, but you don't want to drill all the way through the body. You have to leave that inner edge of the aluminum in the body when you drill it out. So you can only drill it down so far, then take out the old, what remains of the old bushing, epoxy in the new bushing, and then ream it for your new throttle shaft.
So what I've always done there, I've got a piloted reamer.
Yeah.
And so it goes through both holes, and you don't go, as Fred said, you don't go all the way through, because then you can't get the bushings to line up, and you always get air leaks between the bushings and the throttle disc.
Well, again, that piloted reamer is only for oversized shafts.
Mine's slightly undersized. This piloted reamer that I've got, I had it made for me. As a piloted reamer, and it's the thousandths or so less than the oil-like bushings that I buy that I keep swimming in oil. So when I get it, I ream out the carburetor bodies and then put those on a mandrel and drive them in. It's an interference fit, but not much. And then I pass through just a standard 5/16 reamer, and bingo, I'm all set to go.
Yeah. But again, you're not supposed to drill all the way through the body.
Correct. Yeah, and that's especially frustrating with an HIF carburetor, that if you drive the bushing in until it stops, it's not far enough. You can't get the idle below 1800 or 2200 or something. There's a lot of wind that gets past that throttle shaft on an HIF. Yeah. So if you want information about how, Fred, how can we get in touch with you? What's your email address?
FredMHorner@gmail.com.
FredMHorner@gmail.com. Fred's got a wonderful PowerPoint display about SU carburetors. So thanks, Fred.
Yeah.
Sean O'Malley, I thought the Dr. Doolin video on replacing the rear oil seal on an MGA or MGB was very good. Dr. Doolin, and there's a link to it here. DOOLIN, Dr. Doolin. I don't know how many. I know he's got Dr. Doolin rebuilds an MGB engine. So anyway, that's Scott Lynn. He's got another source counting sprites too, up to 355,000. Okay, Caleb Whitt. Are bumpers freely exchangeable between the 60s Bs and early 70 Bs and later 70 Bs? Yes. 1970 is the only one, which is kind of weird. because it's a split bumper in the back, but you can put a full-size bumper on that without any problems. So I want to say, I think I'm right in saying that it's the same front and rear bumper up through 74 with the Dolly Parton with the Sabrina overriders. It's the same bumper.
Thank you, John.
Yep. Where are you calling from, Caleb?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Hey, all right.
And I just got back from my grandfather up in Ohio and started unburying that TD he's got stashed behind his Corvette. He also has an Allard K3 that is immaculate. So it was a real treat to be up there for the last few days.
How many grandkids are lusting after this stuff?
Thankfully, not a single person in the family cares besides me.
Cool. Yep.
Thanks, John.
Just have to make it right with them. Yes. Okay, Caleb, thank you. Okay, coach to everybody. I've got a 79B that's not charging. The alternator was tested at the local parts store and was found to be good. When I turn the ignition key on, the ignition light does not consistently light up. Could the problem be the ignition switch? Probably not. There are you still on, Coach?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So there are two different types of plugs on the back of the alternator. One is narrow, wide, wide, and one is narrow, extra wide, narrow. Both of these have got some problems over a period of time where you can have an intermittent connection. So if you got the original plug, you got to take the plug off, look inside the plug, and there's a barb on the spade terminal itself. To press the barb, pull the spade terminal out of the plastic housing, squeeze it just a little bit, flick the barb back out again, put it back in the plastic, and then take the next one out and do the same to that. Every now and then, hardly ever, the resistance is so high that you get this intermittent connection. It could be too that it just decided to work when you took it to the auto parts store and it doesn't want to work the rest of the time. There's always that going on. But the best way to make sure that an alternator works is to clean the battery terminals. That is, take the clamps off the battery, spread them, clean them if they're American style clamps, spread them, clean them, clean the posts, put those back on, make sure the ground strap is tight, then go underneath the car to the starter motor. If the boot is still on it, that's a real bugger to get off. But to put it back on, if the rubber boot is on the starter motor, to get that back on, turn it upside down over your propane torch and just keep turning it, and it'll get warmer and warmer and more supple. And you'll have lots of time to push it onto the starter motor when you're done. Anyway, take off the nut that holds the main battery cable and all the other battery cables, probably the other brown wires. Get those all off, tighten up the nut that's underneath there, put everything back on, put the nut back on, tighten it up again, put that plastic cover back on, and clean the connections on the back of the alternator. And if all of that fails, then there's something wrong inside the alternator.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I've spoken with you on your phone and you're very approachable and I appreciate it.
Well, you're very kind. Where are you calling from?
Farmington, Missouri.
What do you coach?
Football. It's about 70 miles south of St. Louis.
Okay, all right. Very cool.
You have a good evening.
Thank you. From Mr. Neary, I've got a 73B. I have the original 4-block fuse. What standard American glass fuses should I be using? 15 amp will work. The original fuses that were in there, the Lucas fuses, were 17 continuous, but they would hold, they wouldn't blow uh, if you had an instant, sort of an instant short, that's probably the American fuses is if you brush a purple wire or something against ground, there goes the fuse right there. But just 15 amp American fuses are great. You can buy those at Napa. Sean O'Malley, a quick Google search brings up artwork and drawings. So that was mgbnuts.com. I'm unfamiliar with that site. It's plural, mgbnuts.com. Owen, I've already got you on that.
Yeah, sorry, I had technical issues and my Zoom froze and it sent the messages a couple of times.
Oh, yeah, a couple times for sure. Here it is again. So, and here's Doug Miller's note back to you. And that is to find your local MG club. First of all, they'll be just ecstatic that there's someone under the age of 70 that's got an MG. It's not a place to pick up girls. It was when we all got involved, but we've all gotten older together. So.
Well, these are still chip magnets.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one customer, her dad bought her an MGB as a graduation present. She drove to Las Vegas with a toolbox and she said I could get anything I wanted. A girl with a toolbox and an MGB, oh my gosh. You know. All right, Mike Westland. You might recall a ride in my Blaze Roadster with the inoperable overdrive. Cause was some corrosion in the stalk switch. Dielectric grease to prevent corrosion or not? I've never seen that before. So I mean, dielectric grease is supposed to keep corrosion down. So it must be you took that switch apart and sanded it with a little strip of sandpaper or something or other. So anyway, that's it. Sure, you can use dielectric grease there. Absolutely.
Well, there seems to be some dispute about whether you should use dielectric grease for electrical contact points or not. That's why I ask. So from your experience, what do you do?
I would just clean it. The chance of it getting crappy again is I don't use dielectric grease. I just I know I don't know. Read the package on the dielectric greasers. I just clean the points. You just clean the points. It worked all those years before. I've never heard of a switch losing contact like that. So not that you're a one-off, but it must be extremely rare. So I just clean the points and go with it.
Okay. All right, thanks, John.
Mike, I have a funny inspection story if you want to hear it. Mike C. Well, where's Mike C? Are you still on?
I'm on. I have a 75 midget.
Tell your story. Okay.
I have a 75 midget, and I used to take it to a local garage to get the state inspection every year. And I brought it there because the guy was a real car nut and he loved the old cars. And, you know, you bring it in, he kind of turned a blind eye if the bushings were a little worn and things like that. So one year I bring it to him and he's huffing and puffing to get into the midget. And he's kind of a portly gentleman. And I said, you know, I learned this limerick when I was a kid that my father learned when he was working on the Apollo missions. And it goes, there was once a young man from Boston who used to drive around town in Austin. There was room for his ass and a gallon of gas, but his balls hung out and he lost them. And the guy just stares at me, you know, and I'm kind of chuckling, and he stares at me and he goes, "What kind of Austin was it?"
What kind of Austin?
That's quite get it. I figured I'd share that in case anybody hadn't heard it. My father learned that when he was working. He was actually in Boston working for the instrumentation lab building parts for the Apollo mission, and he learned that limerick.
Okay. Well, that's a tundra midget.
Yes, it's the original color.
Original color. One of the very many Earth colors that were popular in the 70s.
Yeah, I believe that the factory, they called it goose poop green.
Sure, it could be. It could be. Tundra is really, they use that for, I think, 2 years. And there's Tundra GTs, Tundra Bs, Tundra midgets. There, Aqua is one of the really odd ones in 72. There were Aqua midgets, Aqua GTs, and Aqua Bs. There's a lot of really pretty colors out there.
My wife wants to paint it red, and I don't know. I like to keep it all original.
Hey, that's an Ann Landers question. So
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, very cool. Books for Cars has all MG manuals. Books in the I think say the Roman numeral, the Arabic numeral for cars. Books for Cars has all MG manuals. Thank you. Bookfinder.com is a great resource. They've got all these bookstores tied into them. Bookfinder, I use, which one do I use? A Books, and what's the other one? Anyway, Pat is weighed in with this. So there's lots of great places, and if you're tied in, you go in a bookstore, you're tied into this. You're in Anchorage, Alaska, and you've got some book that you'd be happy to sell anybody, for $18, and all you have to do is connect with them. So, yep.
John, I went to Books for Cars, and they had original MG manuals and original MG glove compartment manuals. So they had a lot of good stuff.
Driver's handbooks. Well, those are the 3 original books that were available. You could get the driver's handbook, and that told you how the car worked and basic home sort of maintenance and lubrication. Then there's the workshop manual that tells you, in case you didn't do the lubrication, how to remove the kingpin seal with special tool 18G2111. And if you pick up a copy of Haynes, they've translated that special tool into screwdrivers and vice grips and hammers. Show you how to do it. And then there's the factory parts manuals, which for the MGAs, the magnets, the Z-type magnets, and the very earliest MGBs are just the most wonderful manuals in the world. You can take a look at it, and if you're handy, you can look at it and say, oh, that's an internal star washer, that's an external star washer, that's a helical lock washer. The bracket goes on this way, not that way. It's just great. By the time they get up into the later 60s and 70s, 80s, they aren't quite so nice. They have every single part pictured. I got the microfilms, but all the pieces are displayed sort of hanging in the air and not in their relative locations on the car. So, all right. Well, anyway,
John,
what's that?
I was going to say, we're all paper-oriented people, but Owen, I looked just real quickly, and there's half a dozen sites that have the workshop manual as a PDF or as a downloadable or all that stuff. I've tried that. I can't do it. To heck with it. I want a piece of paper. But young people seem to gravitate toward electronic sources, and they're just put in MGB workshop manual, and a whole plethora comes out.
Great. Thanks, Judd. Thank you very much. So it is, knowledge is power. Somebody says, I want to restore my MGB. I said, well, the manual is about a foot wide that you buy in half-inch increments for anywhere from 25 to 70 bucks. But if you get them all and read them all, then you don't have to reinvent anything. everything's already been done. No matter what problem you've got, somebody's already found. I don't know about corroded points on the switch on the column overdrive. First time I've ever heard of that tonight, but everything is described, but sometimes, especially on the like mgexperience.net, you get so many opinions and they're all over the place. You know, I've had filling up the rack and pinion, for instance, on my MGB, there was a flame war on there about people who were defending the way that I said to do it. That's the way we did it in the shop. It worked. It was easy. And then other people said, "Oh my God, the guy's a madman. Don't do that. You'll have too much oil in your rack and pinion, yada 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 yada." So anyway, you just gotta read through all of that and see what makes sense. But people in the trade are good sources, but you can't bug them too much. You can't call Glenn at Glenn's MG service and keep him on the phone all day because he's trying to make money. You can call me. You won't keep me on the phone all day either, but I'm not under such stress. So.
All right, yeah, I'll make sure to check out the MG workbook you said it was called?
Workshop manual, MG
Workshop manual. I believe we might have a copy at home, so I'll look for that.
Right.
Does anybody have any experience on just the differences in the factory manuals between early and late?
Well,
you know, if you wanted one particularly.
Factory manual from 1964 doesn't say anything about rubber bumpers, and a manual from 77 doesn't say anything about chrome bumpers. So, yeah, they do change, but there's only a couple of manuals. The earlier manual, if you get the reprint, the green covered one, come on.
Bentley?
Bentley, Robert Bentley. That's great because it's got the owner's handbook and the workshop manual and the updates. And I think they even have Joe Huffaker's composition manual, you know, like printed in the back. So you can get a whole lot from those books, the Bentley books.
Cool, thanks.
Okie doke. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are at 9:15. I don't know, was Doug Clark on tonight? Doug, did you hang on long enough? Hi, John.
Yes, I'm here, John. Hi.
Hey, so what number do we get to today? I think I saw 140, but
No, you were close, 141.
Okay, I was answering.
I think I've told you before, you were close, but close only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and at the drive-in movies. So.
Hadn't heard the drive-in movies.
Hey, John, Gary Greenspan again.
Yeah.
I came back. A few years ago, off of the MG Experience, the workshop manual, I had a version that was searchable, but it's not, the search mode doesn't work anymore. So I'll just repost that to the forum and maybe somebody has that, but that makes things so much easier.
Thanks. Okay, well, we're going to wind down tonight. Thank you all very kindly for being here. Go on my website, press that PayPal button and say, "Oh my gosh, we'll help you." On the other hand, I bought some lottery tickets today, so I don't know. Maybe I can buy a plane flight for all of you to come see me sometime, huh? So I do genealogy. I love it. It just, you know, it's everybody does something, but I collect coins too, but I do genealogy, pretty heavy duty into it. And there's two ways to do genealogy. One is to sit there with ancestry.com and pour through old records and try to find distant people in your family and try to find pictures and so forth. Or more simply, you can win the lottery, because then you don't have to go find your family. They will find you.
John Gary again, quick thing. Coins, is it just American coins or world coins? Are you aware the Canadian nickel was made out of tombac in 40, 44, and 45?
Ours are made out of a nickel silver alloy.
Well, they needed the nickel for the war, so they used Tomback, which I'm not sure what it is, but they're brown rather than silver.
All right.
Do you collect other things than American world coins?
No, I don't do any world coins. I mean, I got a great big box of them for my grandkids and stuff, but no, I collect American 2-cent pieces. Go figure, you know. So
the $2 bill will be worth something, right?
it's as odd. It's odder than the $2 bill. Yep, yep. But it doesn't come with a story. What's that story that the $2 bill story about Taco Hell that made the rounds? Urban. I don't know if it was urban legend or not. It was reposted so many times back in the early days of the internet.
Thanks, John.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much, everyone. And ladies, gentlemen, it's been real. We had 141 people on tonight. It's nice. So drive your MG. It's a beautiful day, beautiful days. And if you got any questions, call me.
John, in 2 weeks, the next session, is that right?
Yes, that is correct. That's like I don't know. When we started off, I said what day it was. Must be the 8th. Yep, the 8th.
August 8th.
Yep. And then my next time out is Altoona, PA, at the Central Pennsylvania British Car Fest, the 27th annual or something. I've been to about 20 of them in Altoona, so that's going to be fun. We're gonna get a tech seminar first, although I think that's fully subscribed. I'm gonna do some front suspension work, and then let's see. Then I think I'm gonna be up in Toronto. I'm gonna be in Toronto at the club meeting 13th, maybe Tuesday, the 13th of September. And let's see, I'm gonna make my swing down the East Coast in October. I got Sean English, I've got his engine still that we're gonna put together, make it run on assemble it from a table. And then I think I'm gonna go to South Carolina and do a gearbox seminar down there. Come back to Augusta to visit a customer who calls me from time to time, and Atlanta to see one of my son's army buddies from Afghanistan. So, and that'll be October. As the time gets closer, I'll let people know. And then I'm going to be in Rochester, New York, the Western, George Herschel's group for their Christmas party in December.
Still waiting from Victoria, but any plans to get to even Vancouver?
No, not yet, not yet. But next year, hey, you know, there's also I got as close as Portland, Oregon a year ago. The Portland.
I wrote you years ago. My MG guru has a garage, and he said he would be happy to let you have it for a day.
Hey,
Mike Owen,
South Carolina, John.
What's that?
Where in South Carolina?
Oh, come on.
Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, Aiken, Camden.
Somewhere around there. Spartanburg.
Spartanburg would be great. That's right here.
Journey's End,
Landrum?
Oh no, I'm trying to think of the guy that I've been talking to, and I'm just blank. It's so embarrassing. I mean, I talked to him a lot, and I haven't talked to him in a week. But about once a week I talk to him. But I'll be at Randy Shucks in Midland, Virginia, I think, on my way down. But I do plan to hit South Carolina. So I was in Savannah, Georgia, about two months ago. But I flew to there and then flew home. So specific wasn't just a general drive. So anyway, when that time comes, I'll let everybody know. Judd, I'll let you know. So anyway, thanks very much, everyone. And you can unmute yourself. We can say goodbye. Owen, it's a pleasure to have you on here tonight. You know, and always nice to have have somebody that's coming through, it's all American nuts and bolts, everything comes apart, well, unless it's rusty, real rusty. It's everything comes apart, everything's got an answer. We've all done, most of us have done so much to these cars. So anyway, it'll be a pleasure.
I want to thank you, John, and thank everyone for your input. Whoever had some input. It's always interesting, and I don't claim to be a good mechanic, but if you pay attention to your car, next thing you know, you got 500,000 miles.
Did you get your rack and pinion oiled up today?
Yeah, yeah, we did.
Got it done.
Took one of those shims out?
Took one of the
Yes.
shims out and did the RTB.
Yep, okay.
The thin layer.
Yep.
Man, and I didn't drive it because I wanted the RTB to set up.
I think if you move,
I'll drive it in the morning.
pull up the
Yeah,
car.
and it's, I tell you, I
And
have
it-
to say
moving
your
it
way
to-
of filling the steering rack, it works because when I do that, I don't care if I overfilled it, it steers a lot nicer. I don't know if you can overfill it. It'll go out somewhere.
Well, it'll, if you get too much oil in there and you go around the corner too quickly, the oil can't move from one boot to the other. It'll blow the boot off or apart or something. But the T-types and the MGAs have got a grease fitting on them. All the T-types do, some of the MGAs do. And so, I mean, duh, it's a grease fitting. So, gee, I wonder how much this will take. What, half a tube? The steering gets so sluggish. It's so sluggish. But and that takes a while to get ungreased and oiled up again. But anyway. All right, it's 9:30. Well, it's 9:24. So Doug, thank you for counting tonight. And thanks everybody for being here. Appreciate it.
Hi, John.
And we'll look forward to Doc Rosevear. Nice to see you. And who else is Greg Fisher? Nice. Barney, didn't hear from you tonight. Oh, Jim Pastor is on here from, hey, I'm supposed to let you know what parts you need for sure. I will.
I think I have them all collected, but
Okay.
just double check.
Okay. All right.
Good night, John.
Hey,
Night, John.
And Ron
Thank you.
Kuhnau, you're on there, I see. Thanks. Thanks for being here tonight. Although it's got your wife's name on it, but yeah.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Good night, John.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Everybody have a good evening.
Good night.